Happy Thursday. I hope you guys had a good 3 days off. I know I sent a few things for you guys to do, but I tried to make it just nice and easy. We're going to be talking about housing. Today we're going to learn some words. We're also going to talk about preposition in. We will also be talking about a and as I promised we would in previous videos. So we'll spend a little time on that today. So first, we're going to talk about types of housing. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the words. So I'll say each word twice. I'll leave a short pause after each word. So if you want to repeat what I've just said, I will talk a little bit more in just a couple minutes about the meaning. So if you're looking at some of the pictures and thinking, I'm not quite sure I understand what this word means, we will talk about them. Again, though, first, we're going to say the words. I will say each word 2 times, and I will pause after I say each word and give you a chance to repeat it after me, okay? So number 1, house. Go ahead and say that for me. House. House. Number 2, apartment. Apartment. Number 3, duplex. Duplex. Number 4, townhouse. Townhouse. Number 5, condominium. Condominium. Number 6, mobile home. Mobile home. Number 7, we have a phrase here, buy a house. Buy a house. And number 8, rent an apartment. Rent an apartment. And last one, number 9, neighborhood. Neighborhood. All right, so we're going to talk about the meaning. So if you're looking at some of these pictures, many of you probably know house or apartment, but maybe words like duplex or condominium, maybe you say, that's a little bit new. We're going to talk about these. So house, a place people live. So we go back here. There's our house right there. An apartment, a small place people rent. So usually an apartment is smaller, more small than a house. So it's fewer rooms, and it's a place that people rent. And the difference between a house and an apartment typically is that a house is something you buy. So like we say down here, buy a house. And rent is something we pay to live each month, but we're only there for a short time. We're not going to live there for a long time, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about both of those. So an apartment, a small place, people rent. A duplex, got some lines in there. A duplex, so this is a house divided into 2 apartments. I'm gonna say that again. A house divided into 2 apartments. So if we go back to the picture on the page before, So here's a duplex. You can see right here, there's the line. One family lives over here on this side and one family lives over here on the other side. A condominium, oh, sorry, skip one. A townhouse, sorry. This is a house that shares walls with other houses. So it's different from a duplex. If you look at a duplex, we see 1 and 2. Usually with a townhouse, you'll see more than just 2, maybe 3, 4, maybe a whole street. So this one right here, also these are a little bit bigger usually. So a townhouse right over here, you can see they share walls. And usually again, you'll have, here's one house, there'll be another one right here, another one right here, and it'll keep going down the street. These are things you'll see in big cities. I'm not sure if there's many of these around Sacramento, but if you see one, let me know. A condominium, more commonly referred to, more commonly called a condo. So if you were saying condominium on the previous slide and we're like, ooh, that's kind of hard, that's okay. You can just say a condo. You can call it a condo. So let's say that, condo. Condo. So that is the short name for condominium, condo. And a condo is an apartment a person owns. So this is different from just a regular apartment. If we say apartment, the meaning is that we rent it. We pay money each month, but it does not belong to us. It belongs to an apartment company, an owner. We are not the owners, we are just renters. A condominium, we do own the apartment. Again, this is going to be smaller than a house. So for example, in very big cities like New York, San Francisco, where there's not a lot of room for houses, there are some houses in those places, of course. You might see more condos just because you can have more people living in the city in that way. If we look on this, here's condominiums right here. Sometimes you'll see condominiums in very, very tall buildings and again, these are in big cities like New York, for example, just because you can fit a lot of people. Again, if you have a condo, the meaning is that you own it. You are the owner. A mobile home, a trailer that is made and moved to its final place. So let's go back. So here's a mobile home. So this is made, and then after it is done, after they have made it, they move it to the place it's going to stay, usually permanently. You might see like a mobile home park. That's usually where these end up, where you have an area where many people are living in mobile homes. This is different from houses because houses, you build it in one place and it doesn't move. These ones, you build it one place and then you move it to the place it will stay, usually forever. And then I kind of switched around the order here a little bit. A neighborhood. So this is an area with many houses. So a neighborhood is an area with many houses. If we look here, so like this might be a neighborhood right here. Maybe if you come down here, there might be another neighborhood. Neighborhoods can be big or small. That's why we call the people living around you, living close to you, your neighbors, because they are living in the same neighborhood as you. 2 more. Buy a house. So this means you pay money to own a house. Again, most people do have a home loan called a mortgage. So they have a home loan called a mortgage where they get money from the bank and they slowly pay the bank back over time. If you're able to just buy a house, you know, pay for it all at once. That's great. But it's okay to have a mortgage too. So that's the name for a home loan. So if you're looking at buying a house, you would apply for a mortgage. And again, a mortgage, you pay it every month, but what's happening is the money you owe to the bank is slowly going down over time. And you know, when it's all paid off, you own the house. This is different from rent an apartment. If you rent an apartment, you pay money each month to stay in an apartment. So you pay money each month. It's not like a home loan though, because it's not lowering a payment. You're staying here for a short time. You have an agreement to pay money each month to stay there, but you will never own that apartment. Different situation might be if you have a condo. And again, though, you would have a mortgage on your condo if you're paying money each month. So rent an apartment, you pay money each month to stay in an apartment. And so that's rent versus buy. One other one that might come up in some of our lessons, I just wanted to put this in here. Also, if anybody, you know, has seen one of these and was wondering what it was called. Another place people live is a cabin. You'll see these in kind of the woods, the forests in California where there's lots of trees. If you go up into the mountains, you visit up in the mountains, you might see some cabins. If you've been like the Tahoe area, you've probably seen some cabins up there. Cabin is a house made of wood that is in the woods. And you can see just here from the picture, it has a very special kind of distinct style. It has the logs, which are round. So when you see a cabin, you know right away, well, that's a different kind of house. If you were to call it a house, that would be okay, but technically it's a cabin. So this is cabin. All right. Ooh, I'm gonna put me down here. That's fun. All right, so rules for A or and. I did promise a few videos ago that we would go over A and today is that day. I thought this would be a good time to do it just because it's important to know which one to use as we talk about our different housing words, and also because I'm going to ask you to write some sentences and you will need to use A or and in some of those sentences, so you'll need to know which one to use for your sentence. So A, and. The difference between A and an. So A and an have the same meaning. A and an are something called indefinite articles. The difference depends on the sound at the beginning of the next word. I'll talk a little bit more about the meaning in a second, but when the next word starts with a consonant sound, we use A. So our consonants, we have 21 of these. Our consonants are B, C, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So those are our consonant sounds. And what I want to point to here, and this will come up a little bit later when we come down here, is it's important we're talking about sounds. So what you hear. So this is consonant sound, so like B, K, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, Z. So those are the consonant sounds. When the word starts with a vowel sound, again, pointing to sound, what you hear, we use an. So our a, e, I, a, or a, e, I, o, u sounds, right? So for example, so let's just look at these. So consonant sounds, a book, b, book. That's a consonant sound. A car, k, car, consonant sound. A dog, d, dog, consonant sound. A frog, f, frog, consonant sound. A lemon, l, lemon, consonant sound. A truck, t, truck, consonant sound. Yeah. If we come over here, our vowel sounds, and apple, ah, apple. An egg, eh, egg. An insect, insect. An orange, this is our O, orange. An umbrella, umbrella. An actor, actor. So do be careful though, there are 2 sounds you need to watch out for. So again, it says be careful, the sound of the letter is important. So we use a or an based on what we hear, not what we see. Usually what we see can help us. Most of the time, it's gonna lead us in the right direction, but we really need to think about what we hear, what sound it makes. So what I sometimes will recommend, if you're not sure, and again, these are only going to be for words that start with U or H. If you're not sure, say the word out loud. If you're not sure how the word is said, you can always Google it. You can Google how to say and then type the word. There will be a YouTube video, I guarantee, for most words out there. Or if there's not a YouTube video, the dictionary has pronunciations for it too. Google Translate also has pronunciations. So if you're not sure how to say a word, you can always check how to say it with any of those. So again, YouTube, dictionary.com, Google Translate. All of those will help you if you're not sure. So let's look at this. So a house, house. This can be kind of hard to hear, but this has a consonant sound. So we use a, right? But let's look over here. An hour. So the H at the beginning of hour is silent. So listen to that. Hour. You don't hear hower. No, we hear hour. So the first sound here is an ow sound. Again, you might say, well, I don't see that on the vowel sounds list. There are some extra vowel sounds out there. So like ow, oi, those ones. So sounds that come from vowels would count here too. So this is an example. So an hour. And again, we use, oops, gonna go back. I clicked forward. We use an here because this is a vowel sound. If we come down here, an uncle, uncle. But a university. The U at the beginning of university sounds like U. So it sounds like a Y sound, which is, if we come over here, a consonant sound. So we say a university. So we just really need to be careful with H's and U's. So if it makes a U sound versus a silent H sound. So those are the ones that might be a little different. So if it's a, we use a. If it's a silent H, we use an. If it's an we use an. If it's a U, we use a. This rule applies to all words after a or an. So one thing you might notice, so for example, if we come down here, a cold day. So we see 2 words that come after it. What will tell us whether to use a or an is not the noun necessarily. In these examples, it is the noun. It's the word that comes after. So a cold day. Day is the noun, cold is an adjective, but this is what is closest. So that's telling us to use a because it's cold. An easy lesson. Here we have an E sound, an easy lesson. So even though the noun starts with an O, a consonant sound, the word that comes right after easy is an E sound. So that's why we use an. A very crazy person. Closest word is very. This is an adverb. A very crazy person. Consonant sound. An interesting class. We use an because it's interesting. So we're going to do a little bit of practice with this, just a little bit. Hopefully this is nice and easy. Oh yay, my face isn't in the way. So let's practice. I'm going to give you some words. I decided not to use housing words for this just because we're going to see plenty of examples. And I want to just kind of test you on some different things. So let's practice. So the word friend, friend. Here we have a f. What do you think? A or an? And you can go ahead and just say this to your computer. What do you think? Friend. A friend and friend. Which one do you think? A friend, right? A friend. Because F is a consonant sound. We have a few more. And my face is in the way. Oh no. I'm just gonna put them over here. Don't mind me. A or an. So beautiful day. Beautiful day. A beautiful day or an beautiful day? What do you think? A beautiful day. So this one we have two words. The one we're going to look at is this one that is closest. And we're going to look at this first letter here, B. It's a B. It makes a B sound. A beautiful day, B, is a consonant sound, so we use A. All right, this one, insect. Insect. A or an? What do you think? Oh, I made a typo. Sorry. If you said an and then you saw A, you were right and I was wrong. There we go. There we go. An insect. If we were to say a insect, that would be wrong, right? So an insect. An insect. And this one right over here, you might have recognized this from here. An insect is a bug. So something like a spider or an ant. I was testing you to make sure you were paying attention. All right, what about this one? Now this one, I'm just gonna, even before I say the word, we see a U. We gotta be careful with U's. So I want you to really listen to this U. I want you to really listen, and I want you to think about, is it an or is it a U, right? Because we're gonna use different ones for each. So the word is uniform. Uniform. A or an? What do you think? Uniform. A, uniform. So this time it's not a mistake. A uniform, this is the same as university over here, right? So a university, because it sounds like U, it sounds like a Y, a consonant sound, we say A. And again, here we have an H. Remember, H's and U's, we got to be careful. So the word is home. Home. A or an? Home. What do you think? A, home. Yeah? I know H's can be challenging because even when we're saying them, so like home, horse, house, it's a very quiet sound. So it can sometimes be a little bit hard to hear. So if you're having a hard time hearing that H, my recommendation, what I think is a good idea, just memorize. I'm going to move so you can see my hands. Memorize the silent H words. Memorize the silent H words because that's a very, very short list. And if you know what those are, you know all the other ones use H, right? So that would be, I think, the easiest way. If you're like, oh, I'm not sure, I have a hard time hearing the H's. How do I know if it's a silent H or it's just hard to hear because it's quiet? Memorize the words with silent H. There's not very many of them. There's only a very few. So if you know those, you know all the other ones, use the voiced H. All right, some important notes. I'm actually going to add one on here. So a or an equals 1. So the meaning of a or an is 1. So if you say a dog, I know how many dogs you're talking about. And I think we talked about this just very briefly in another video. So if I say a dog, I know there is only one dog. I know the number. If I say an umbrella, I know there is only one umbrella, right? So a or an equals 1. That's the meaning. If you're talking about more than one of something, you would not use a or an. You'd probably use the if you needed to use an article. Also, we do not use a or an with proper names unless it's part of the name. So for example, we wouldn't say, let's see, a Target, for example, like I went to, well, you could say that, I guess, if you mean, that's the other thing. Okay, we'll go into this can of worms. I know. So a or an, one of the meanings of a or an is it could be any. So if I say, for example, can you bring me a pen? And I know I've given this example in class, so some of you might say, oh, you need to, use a new example. If I say, bring me a pen, and if you know me, I have, about 20 different pens in my class, and they're all different colors. If I say, bring me a pen, I don't care which one. I'm not thinking of a specific one. I just say, bring me a pen. I'm okay with you bringing me any of those pens. And that's where the word indefinite comes from. So indefinite, it could be any. I don't have a specific one in mind. We also use this the first time we're telling somebody about something. So when it's new information for them. So for example, I'm actually just gonna reach over here. Here's actually a pen. I have a lot of these just everywhere in my house. Apartment, technically. So here is a pen. So I use a because it's the first time I'm telling you about this pen. The pen is black with some silver on it. It's black. The ink is black. So when I first started talking about this pen, I used a, right? Because this was new. This was something I was talking about to you for the first time. And then after I talked about it one time, I can switch to the. I can say the because now you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this pen right here, the pen in my hand. So we can use a, and again, we'll practice this a little bit more. I just thought since I kind of went into it that I would throw that in there. Again, though, we really don't use it with proper names unless it's part of the name. We can use it sometimes with proper names if we're talking about something that's not specific. So if I say, I went to a Target and bought a pineapple, which actually sounds like something I would do. I went to a Target and bought a pineapple. You don't know which Target. And maybe I use a because it's the first time I'm bringing it up. Maybe I think it doesn't matter, which Target it was because there's a lot of them around. Also notice when I said I went to Target to buy a pineapple, I think that's the sentence I said a pineapple, right? Because it's the first time you're hearing about this pineapple. Not the first time you've heard about pineapples from me, but the first time I'm telling you about this pineapple that I bought at Target. Then I can switch the pineapple, because you know what I'm talking about, the pineapple I bought at Target. The pineapple was gold. It was golden. It was a beautiful golden color. And I can tell you more about this beautiful pineapple. So typically we don't use it with proper names unless we have a special situation, like, you know, I went to a Target and bought this. But most of the time, if we're thinking of, let's say, for example, cities, we wouldn't say, I live in a Sacramento. There's more than one city called Sacramento in the United States. But we're not talking about just any Sacramento. We're talking about a specific, a definite thing here. So we wouldn't use a with that. Again, if you're like, that's a little bit challenging, a little bit tricky, we can practice with that later. If you have more questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. One other thing I do want to point out before I go on, I know you're like, oh, stop talking, just go to the next slide. Many times in English, so I know I've been saying a book, a car, a dog. If you're hearing a native speaker use a in a sentence, and I've said this a few times in some of my example sentences, you may hear them pronounce it as a instead of a. So they might say a book, a car, a dog. Of course, the correct pronunciation is a. Is kind of lazy pronunciation, but it's okay to use. And the reason that you will hear instead of a is because is a very easy sound to make. And if we're talking fast, I could say something like, I bought a pineapple at Target. I bought a pineapple at Target. I bought a pineapple at Target. Same sentence, I'm saying a two different ways. It's easier and faster to say instead of a. Again, though, you can use a. It's just something I want you to be aware of. Native speakers will more often than not use instead of a. Some people do use a, so that you will hear that, but you will probably hear more than a. You are free to use whichever one works for you. Next slide. Okay, A or N is done. Oh, my face is in the way. All right, so I promise we're getting really close. I know I made this slideshow way too long, but that's okay. I figured because we missed 3 days, because we had the teacher training, but it would be good to give you a little bit extra, you know, just to think about and go through, make up for, you know, the past 3 days. All right, so live and lives. Let's just say those. Live, lives. So simple present, we use live with I, you, they, and we. Another example here, my friends. My friends, they live in an apartment. He, she, it lives. Or my sister, she lives. So let's look at these sentences, and I'm gonna have you practice writing sentences similar to these. I would also like you to notice an, right here, an apartment. A cave, right here. So you'll notice our a or an is coming into play here. So a house, an apartment, a duplex, a cave, a condo, etc., etc. So I'm going to read these sentences. I live in an apartment. So what I'll have you do, if you want to say these with me, I live in an apartment. You live in an apartment. They live in an apartment. We live in an apartment. My friends live in an apartment. He lives in an apartment. She lives in an apartment. It lives in a cave. My sister lives in an apartment. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna read through these one more time. I would like you to read them with me if you didn't the first time. If you just listened the first time, that's okay. I'd like you to say these with me. So come on and read these with me all together. I live in an apartment. You live in an apartment. They live in an apartment. We live in an apartment. My friends live in an apartment. He lives in an apartment. She lives in an apartment. It lives in a cave. My sister lives in an apartment. All right. So we will be working with and doing some writing with live and lives. We're also going to be working with in. So what I will have you notice about in, so in is a preposition. We've talked a little bit about prepositions before. I know we've talked about them in class also. The pattern for a preposition is preposition plus a noun, right? Preposition plus a noun. So we have these two things next to each other. Let's see, I'm gonna write this down on a little paper here. We'll see, the camera might do it backwards. So preposition, and they always come with a noun friend, except for in very special cases. So let's see. Let's see, is that's backwards. I'm still figuring out this camera thing. So we can just look here. It was a good try, I tried. So in, preposition, and apartment, noun. So prepositions come with noun friends, right? And some of these noun friends, some of these noun friends are common nouns. So an apartment, a house, some of them are names. So we use prepositions, preposition in, to talk about places we live, such as houses, apartments, etc. So you would say, I live in a condo, or I live in a house. I live in an apartment, like that. So we use them to talk about places we live. Again, those are common nouns. Those will use a or an. We can also use it to tell about the city, state, and country where we live. Again, I'm just going to point to this on the bottom. We don't use a or an with proper nouns typically. Again, there are those special cases I mentioned. For what we're doing here, we're not going to use them with our proper nouns. So for example, city, I live in Sacramento. I live in California, state. I live in America, country. I live in the United States of America. You could say I live in the USA, whatever is easier for you to type or write. So we can use these, and we're going to practice with both. We're going to talk about the kinds of houses or apartments, condos, what we live in. We're also going to talk about city, state, and country. And again, unless it's part of the name, so like the United States of America, we're not going to use articles. The is an article, it's a definite article. We'll talk about the in another video. So unless it's part of the name though, we're not going to include it. All right, so we're gonna do a listening. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to read this twice, possibly 3 times. I'll decide when I get there. So what I'll have you do, if you have, you can do this on a little paper. So if you have a little paper nearby, you can go ahead and grab that and grab a pen, something to write with, just to write down the answers. If you don't have a paper, what you can just do is you can click on this video and you can pause it and maybe go ahead and grab a paper. Usually, and what I'll do in most videos from now on, I think, is I'll try and have the listenings at the end. So just make sure that you have a paper, just something to write on, so that when we get to the end of the video. Also, it's just a good idea if you want to take notes during the video on things I say, because I do share this slideshow with you on the Google Classroom. However, sometimes I might say things in the video that are extra that you won't see in the slideshow, right? So hopefully you have a paper or something. Again, if you need to get a paper, go ahead and click on this video, pause it. Then when you have your paper ready to go, you can unpause it. Kind of talking a little bit here just in case you're rushing around looking for something to write with. So we're going to read this 2 or 3 times. So the words we're going to use are am, is, are, have, has, a, an, or in. And this story features some questions and also our friend Pesci. So I'm going to read this, and again, I will use one of these words to finish this sentence. All right, you ready? All right, so Pesci is a student. He has a big family. His family lives in Italy. They live in a city. They live in an apartment. The apartment is big. It has many rooms. Where do you live? Do you live in an apartment or a house? What city do you live in? How long have you lived in California? And again, so I'll give you just a minute if you're writing things down. Let's see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a total of 12 here. So it might help just to have, 1 through 12 on your paper like this. So if you're listening and you weren't quite sure, you're like, how should I write these down? There's 12. So if you number just 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12 on your paper, that should do just fine. I think I'll read it 2 more times, just because maybe you got your little notebook here and you started writing the whole thing. You don't need to write the whole thing, just the words. So there's 12 words. Again, I'm going to read it again. All right, so 2 more times. So Pesci is a student. He has a big family. His family lives in Italy. They live in a city. They live in an apartment. The apartment is big. It has many rooms. Where do you live? Do you live in an apartment or a house? What city do you live in? How long have you lived in California? All right, I'm going to read it one more time and then we'll read the answers. So, Pesci is a student. He has a big family. His family lives in Italy. They live in a city. They live in an apartment. The apartment is big. It has many rooms. Where do you live? Do you live in an apartment or a house? What city do you live in? How long have you lived in California? All right, so our answers, and these I put in bold. Pesci is a student. He has a big family. His family lives in Italy. They live in a city. They live in an apartment. The apartment is big. It has many rooms. Where do you live? Do you live in an apartment or a house? What city do you live in? How long have you lived in California? So how did that go? Okay, yeah. All right. So this is our last slide. I know you're like, whew, she talks so long. I know. I wanted to give you just, again, some extra things to work on. So what you're gonna see in terms of activities, so once you finish this video, you're gonna go back to the Google Classroom, and in the Google Classroom, you will do the activity that goes with it. The activity does have a good number of parts, so it is a little bit on the longer side. It's gonna have you do things like answer questions like, what is this? Is it an apartment? Is it a house? What is it? I'm also gonna have you write answers to sentences. I'm gonna have you do a little bit of practice with a or an, and I'm gonna have you write sentences again using specifically in. So I'm gonna ask you a question like, what city do you live in? And you will write, I live in Sacramento. I might say something like, what city does Katie live in? And I'll give you the city in parentheses and you'll say Katie lives in, and then you'll give me the name of her city. So I'm gonna have you practice a little bit of everything. So it might be a slightly longer assignment, but I think you'll do great. Also just because we haven't practiced a lot of stuff this week, and we only had really short lessons. Again, if you have any questions on anything here, please feel free, comment below. You can also send me a message, an email, a text. You can comment on this in the Google Classroom and I will get back and give you an answer. So that's all we have for today. So thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.